What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to explain how I bought 5 houses by the time I was 26. Got a few questions, basically, how did I do that, and what steps did I take, and all that kind of stuff that people ask, how you did the things that you did. So I figured today's video, I'd just make a video and explain how I did that. Currently I don't have 5 houses. Currently I have 4 houses. But I have bought 5 houses throughout my life at this point. Just to give you a rundown of what current houses I do have. So I live in one house. I have 3 other houses. I rent all 3 of them out. And the 5th house was a house that I flipped. So, I've owned houses, 3 different reasons why I've owned houses. 1 for a flip, 1 to live in, and 3 to rent out. So that's where I'm currently at, but the point of the video is to explain how I got here. So it basically just begins with probably maybe 10 years ago or so, about 10 years ago I'd say. I basically just started working, and I was in high school. I was a junior in high school when I started working. At the time, I just worked as much as I possibly could. Junior year, I probably worked, 20 to 30 hours a week. Not too much, but it's probably a little bit above average for most people that age, what they work. Between junior year and senior year over the summer, I started working 40 plus hours a week at my job. It wasn't a big job. It was a job at Walgreens, a good starter job. Made, slightly more than minimum wage, but for a 17, 18-year-old who lived at home and had 0 expenses, all I had to pay for was gas and any food I wanted to eat. So I worked a lot, so I didn't have to, spend much money going out. And usually when I did go out, I would always do things that didn't cost money or were just really cheap. So basically, my first few years, I worked a lot, had basically little. I had some expenses, but just little amount of expenses. And I just worked and worked. It's work, not spend the money and then work some more. That's basically what I did for the first 2-3 years of working. Worked full-time, overtime, as much as I could. Overtime was kind of rare, but I did work as much as I could. So all the money I made, I just saved it. And, maybe I was only making $300, $400, $500 a paycheck every other week. But, making $1,000 a month as an 18-year-old was a good amount. So I did that and continued into college. And, in college, I would continue to work full-time. While I was in school, I worked full-time and went to school full-time. So I did both full-time. It was a lot, but it wasn't difficult. It's just I chose to work as much as I could and work at school as much as I could. Some people can't do it. Some people can do it. Some people choose not to do it. Everyone has their own reasons. This is just how I did it. Doesn't mean you have to do it exactly how I did it or do it the ways that I did. But this is just, how I did it. So I continued to work full-time in college. At this point, my first year in college, I became a manager at the store. So I was making more money. Wasn't making tons more. I think I was making $10, $11 an hour. So not tons. And this was probably, and then another year, it was every year. So then the next year I got another promotion, was a higher level, still a manager, still an assistant manager, but just a higher level assistant manager. So this time I started making, pretty decent money. I was making probably $15, $16 an hour. I think, eventually I got to $17 or $18 an hour, but still living at home. In between school, probably about, I forget what year it was. It was my second or third year. It doesn't really matter which year it was, but it was one of those years. I joined the National Guard. So that, I had a break of 6 months in school. Went away to do my training and came back. So all of my schooling was paid for. So I never had to worry about, student debt, because I never wanted any of it. So obviously I did what I could do to avoid that completely. And I have zero, I've had zero school debt, since day one. So After I came back, I continued with school and did all that. I went to school for economics, so that's what I learned there. I don't know about learn, but like that's what I went to classes in. Learning, I always did it on my own for the most part, and then so I continued to work full time. I had zero expenses when it came to school. Still lived at home. While I was in school, I only lived about 20-30 minutes from the university, so there's no reason for me to live there, in my opinion. Some people did, and that's fine. It's their choice. They can do what they want. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just we all have different choices. So lived at home, saved tons of money, made a good amount of money. And around this point is probably when I was like 20 to 22. I had about I had a little over 18,000 saved up, and I took about 18,000 of that. So I had probably about 2,000 or 3,000 left in savings. So I took the $18,000, and I turned that into $50,000 over the course of 18 months. And that was simply just through stocks and bonds and options trading. Had a brokerage account, taught myself how to do that, and over that 18-month period, I turned my $18,000 into $50,000. Obviously it required a lot of research, dedication, obviously required some risk, but no risk I felt I was taking unnecessarily. So it was all calculated risk, and obviously it worked out. So, and then with that $50,000, by the time I got the $50,000, I had a new job. I started working at Capital One. Was actually making the same amount of money as I was as a manager at Walgreens, making like $16, $17 an hour, something like that. Was working as much as I could, especially at the beginning. I was working overtime and all that fun stuff. So I just continued to make more money, more and more and more. So I got to the $50,000 that I did with the brokerage account. So the money I was making while I was working, I rarely put money into the brokerage account at this point. I built it up to the 18,000, and then I turned it into 50,000. But in between that, I wasn't putting too much more money in the brokerage account. I pretty much just kept it in a savings account, or would use that for a little bit more spending I was doing. In the meantime, I bought a car, so I was paying that $300-$400 a month in the payment. So I was spending a little bit more money, but wasn't spending that much more. So we turned that $50,000, and with the job I was making, probably, there was bonuses involved, so there's probably we'll say $35,000 to $40,000 making a year, maybe 40, between 35 and maybe 42, somewhere between there. It's not really fully relevant. So I'd make, making that much a year, and with that $50,000, I bought my first house. Didn't live in it, but I bought the house. Bought the house as an investment, rented it out. First one was, the rent was $1,150. Mortgage payment somewhere between $800 to $820, maybe $830. So not too much. Had a pretty good, sizable cash flow. It was my first house. Required, I think I didn't even put that much money down into it, really. Maybe $9,000, just under $10,000. So, didn't put that much money into it. It was making, $300 a month cash flow, a little under $300 cash flow. So that was in December, and then in February, I bought another house. This one was a way better purchase. I knew that going into it, because the way I did it is the first house I bought was a more expensive house, because I knew it would be easier to buy the more expensive house first and then buy a cheaper house second, instead of doing the cheaper one first and the more expensive one. So that's what I did. So that one was $10,000 down for the first house, with the $1,150 rent payment is what I charged my tenant, and the mortgage payment was about $820. The next one I put about, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was close to $20,000 down. House was cheaper, but I did a bigger down payment, so it was $20,000 down. The mortgage payment on this one somewhere around $500, give or take a little bit, and the rent is $950. So that one, obviously is a nicer cash flow. Pretty much doubling my money, just under doubling my money. So that's obviously a way better, way to look at it. At this point I was 24, so I really didn't get into buying houses until I was 24, right? Yeah, it's 24. So that's when I bought my first house at 24. Sometimes the numbers are just like, ugh, so I forget what the exact age was, but it was 24. So I had two houses, still working at Capital One, had my real estate license. So obviously when I bought the houses, I got the commission. So I got a little bit of back when I put the down payments down, which was nice. Definitely helps with the payments. Also what I did when I bought both houses is I had a tenant lined up to go into those houses before I actually settled on the property. So I made the offer on the house, got it accepted. I knew I was going to settle on the house in like 45 days. And in that 45 days, I'd work as hard as I possibly could to find a good tenant to move into that house. And I did it for both of them. I actually did it for all my houses, to date. So I'd have my rent payment, have my security deposit before my first mortgage payment was due. So I was always ahead and continue to be ahead. And it's great. It's a great way to do it. You have 45 days. You could still look at the property within that 45 days. So what you can do is you can bring a possible tenant and show them the property. If you're planning on making fixes to it, you want to calculate that. Like both the houses I bought were move-in ready. I did very little to them. I spent like a weekend on the house. That was it. Like 2 days. That's it. So simple stuff. That's just, that's what I chose to do it because I felt based on my, I was still working at Capital One, still working a full-time job. Finding the time to do a bunch of work to the house would be a little bit more difficult, and I wanted somebody in the house right away. So I chose to buy two houses that were good. So did that, had them both moved in, had the rent paying probably for, it was about, I didn't buy another house for about a year. Which is, at that point you have two mortgages, and you can't really use the rent payments as part of your income for about a year. So, I had all this debt every month, and the income that I was getting from the rent, I couldn't really use for my income. So it looked like I had tons of debt and not much income. So for about a year, I really couldn't do much. I just kept getting the rent, still working at Capital One during this time. Within the year, though, I didn't work there anymore. I took on real estate full time. And was just, being a real estate agent, realtor, and making money off the commission. And then about a year after I bought the second house, it was like 11 months after I bought the second house, I bought a house to flip. This is the first time I've ever done a flip. That house got it pretty cheap. Made a decent amount off it when I sold it. It wasn't, the greatest, but it was, I made some, so it worked out. It was good. Didn't waste my time. And then right before I sold that, my now fiance and I bought, her and I bought a house to live in, and we now live in that house. It's the house actually we're recording in right now. So that was the fourth house I bought. And then it was about 4 or 5 months after that, I bought my fifth house, and that was another, investment property. This one was actually the cheapest one I bought and the best one to date that I bought. Hopefully the next ones, as you can see, for the three rental properties that I bought, each of them as I bought them got better and better. So, but when I bought the fifth one, the house was only $60,000, so it was super cheap. Like the mortgage payment on it, it's like $402 a month right now. And the rent is $1,000. So that's obviously about $600 a month, just under like $597 and some change a month cash flow on that house. That house was, it's amazing. When I bought the house, probably put about $2,000-ish into the house when I bought it. Not too much. It was probably the most work I've done out of all the houses. I painted the entire second floor of the house, put in all new carpet. Never did anything that big on the first two houses. But we did it on this one, so it was good. Then when it comes to, obviously we were looking for, the next one. I'm always looking for more. But that's basically how I bought 5 houses, by the time I'm 26. I'll be 27 next month, so don't think I'll have another one by then, but we are looking to get some more, pretty quickly in the next few months. Rental properties have been great for me. For the one I told you I just bought the $60,000 one, the last one I bought, before the mortgage payment was due, had the renter in there with the rent and the security deposit, so that one was good as well. So that's basically how I did it. I mean, obviously, it's nice to get the commission back on the houses when you buy them. That definitely makes buying them a little bit cheaper. Because if you have for the last one, I had about a $11,000 down payment or $12,000 down payment, and then the next day I got about a little over $1,000 back. It might have been $1,600 back in commission. So it made the down payment seem like a little bit less. And now currently we're just saving up to get our next one, which, like I said, hopefully is in a few months. And at this point, the rental income basically provides for all of our, expenses here. I mean, obviously, my future wife works, so her money obviously goes towards our monthly expenses as well. But so what that means is pretty much every house I sell at this point, all that commission just goes right towards building up the next down payment for the next house. So that's what we're working towards right now. It's nice that we got to the point where the rental income pretty much covers our monthly expenses for the most part. I mean, it's a little short, but with her working and with my National Guard pay, that alone more than supersedes what we need. So that's obviously a good amount. And yeah, so I mean, we're looking forward to the next one. I mean, maybe by the time I'm 30, I'll be making a video how I bought 30 houses before 30, something like that. I mean, that's what we're looking forward to doing, is just buying more houses. That way we can just take care of the houses and live off of that, and that's our goal. So, so that's pretty much how I personally bought 5 houses by the time I was 26. So, feel free to like this video. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more real estate content, both monthly updates. I have a series of monthly updates on the real estate market here in Newcastle County, Delaware. I do a lot of drone and interior video for my real estate clients and other real estate agents for their clients as well. So you'll see them posted on the page. And then just little tips and tricks and how-to things when it comes to real estate. I have them on my channel as well. So feel free to check that all out. And stick around.